Let's make a canvas from scratch. Hi everyone, Comics here, and today I've been wanting to go back to oil painting as my goal for 2026. In my art school days, I was taught how to stretch my own canvases, so let's see if I can remember the process. Here's one of the canvases I made myself during school, and it turned out quite nice. Now let's get started. To start, you're going to need stretcher bars, which is the base of the canvas. I'll be using 16-inch and 12-inch stretcher bars. You are also going to need either linen or cotton duck fabric, enough to wrap around the canvas size. You're also going to need a staple gun, a long palette knife, a 3-inch wide flat brush, canvas pliers, acrylic gesso, and 1-inch wide flat brush. You're also going to need genuine rabbit glue granules, an empty container that can handle heat, and 1 cup of water. The first step is prepping the rabbit glue. I'm going to use about 1.5 tablespoons of the glue into the container. Then you're going to pour in the cup of water into the same container and let that rest for at least an hour. This will help it absorb the water better when it is heated. While that's happening, we're going to take our stretcher bars and join the corners as best as we can, because that's all we can really do, our best. If you have tiny arms like me, use a small rubber hammer to help join the corners and make it close to a 90-degree angle as possible. With the last bar, it gets a little difficult to join it with the other 2 bars at the same time, and sometimes the bars will loosen. I use the hammer to secure all 4 corners, and it feels solid and good to go. Unroll your cotton canvas or linen and place it under your stretcher bars. You want to wrap the fabric around the bars just enough to cover the width like so. This is to ensure you have enough fabric to pull on and staple when stretching it around the bars. I cut off the extra I don't need. If you're deciding whether to buy a linen or cotton canvas, unless you want your work to last longer than you, I'd go with the cotton canvas, especially if you're just practicing, and it's more affordable. And now it's time to use the staple gun to staple the fabric onto the bars. I remember my teacher taught us to staple the fabric onto the side of the bars and the back to have a more tight canvas, but I want to leave the sides open to paint on. Staple from the center out while leaving a 1.5 inch distance between them. After that, I then use my stretcher pliers to grab a chunk of the fabric on the opposite side and use this little lever against the bar to stretch as much as possible. I leave myself 3 inches on the other sides to tuck the fabric in. You can use a small rubber hammer to make sure the staples are flush against the bars. Now that all the sides are stapled into the back, it's time for the corners. You're going to essentially tuck the leftover fabric between the side of the bar and the fabric and fold like so. I also staple the fabric over the gap of the stretcher bars. Do the same for the rest of the corners, and then it will look like this. Beautiful, but we're not done. Now it's time to check on our rabbit glue. As you can see, the granules have swollen up a bit, so now it's time to heat it up. Note that the glue would be useless if you boil it, so we have to do the double boiler method and gently heat it up. I have a metal bowl big enough to hold the container, and I have water boiling and ready to go. So you're gonna put your glue in the container and pour the water into the metal bowl. Right now you can see the granules, but after around 5 minutes of gentle stirring, it will have this nice viscosity. Our glue is ready and it's time to apply. I have my 3-inch flat brush ready, and we're going to dip it into the glue and start brushing onto the canvas. Try not to put too much glue in one spot. With the cotton canvas, as you cannot see, it's hard to tell if the glue is being applied, but if you're working with linen, the fabric will darken as the glue is applied. So with cotton, you're just going to have to trust yourself, but don't worry, we'll start brushing the other way to ensure full coverage. Don't forget the sides too. You don't have to worry about applying it to the back since the glue is used to protect and tighten the fabric from being eaten away over time by the oil paint. The glue is applied, and now we wait a day later to add another coat. It's the next day, and here you can see that the rabbit glue has become a jelly. I had covered it and put it in the fridge beforehand so it prevents any rotting. My teacher had taught me this particular method since he really liked using the jelly form to ensure the canvas was completely covered and really tighten the canvas. You can probably skip this step, but I'm just going to continue with the method. Take a chunk of the glue gel and slowly rub and work into the canvas. The heat from your hands will slowly melt gel over time, so don't worry if it takes some time to get absorbed. I have 2 little micromanagers coming to check if I'm doing it right. And don't forget the sides. Here it is applied, and you can tell that the texture is slightly changed, showing a little less of the canvas texture. We wait for it to completely dry another day. Now it's time to apply the acrylic gesso. I'm using this matte white gesso, palette knife, and brush. I prefer applying the gesso with a palette knife because I like the texture it produces and the feel of pushing it around like a bully. Like the other steps, don't forget the sides. This time I use the brush since it's easier to apply and less messy. Now I'm applying a second coat of gesso. And it is finished. Look how it came out. Oh, I'm so happy with the results. You can see the difference between the knife and the brush in terms of how it affects the gesso texture. If you like more of the canvas texture coming through, I suggest using the brush. But I like hiding some of the texture with the knife. Plus, I am way too lazy to sand the canvas between the coats. I hope this tutorial helps you create your own canvas and be proud of what you created, even if it is a blank canvas. Cause yeah, you did that. And you should be proud. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you next time. Stay creative.